Greetings Exile, it's me, the guy who makes off-meta trash builds that nobody asks for, bringing you another abomination of a build which apparently many of you did ask for. Making this build has been quite a challenge, as this is one of the least played skills right now, so there was very limited information available. And above everything, I had to make this build on a class which I've never played before. But somehow, despite all of that, I managed to make this build work. And in this video, we're going to talk all about how the build functions, how I made it work, and what makes it viable. So let's get started. The skill that we use for this build is Holy Sweep of Hammer Falls, which is a transfigured version of Holy Sweep. This skill has much lower attack damage scaling, and the hammers that fall from it also deal 50% less damage instead of 35% less when compared to regular Holy Sweep. And worst of all, this skill has a 5-second cooldown. Overall, this seems like a horrible skill, so most people just use it as a secondary skill on top of regular Holy Sweep. But I won't call it a build if it's not being used as the main skill. So to turn it into our main skill, I tapped into the limited potential this skill has. When this skill is used, it brings down multiple waves of hammers for a duration in an area around us. And no, they don't follow us. The rate at which these hammers fall scales with increases and reductions to non-local attack speed. This means the base attack speed of your weapon has no effect on this. So even if you use a weapon with minus 1000 attack speed, it will still have no effect on the hammer fall rate. And for some reason, less attack speed penalties from melee physical and pulverized support have no effect either, although this could potentially be a bug. However, increased attack speed from faster attack support fully benefits the hammer fall rate. But the main problem is that this skill can only be used with staves and maces, both weapon types which almost have no attack speed knots available to them. So I use cluster jewels like this one, which provides increased attack speed per knot, and a tincture like this which temporarily provides a massive boost to attack speed. Onslaught buff, which increases attack speed and cast speed, also boosts our damage and helps us push the hammer fall rate even further. This solves our attack speed problem. But to boost our damage even further, we use Intimidating Cry, which provides double damage. And we can abuse this to boost the damage of every hammer that falls from the skill, essentially doubling our damage for the entire duration. And since every hammer that falls count as an individual hit, they can also be used to trigger Shockwave and even Void Shockwave support, as long as we have a cooldown available. This completely solves our clear problem while also providing another solid source of damage. Lastly, the biggest problem with this build is the cooldown. There's no way we can reliably use this as our main skill with a 5-second cooldown. So I used all of these sources of cooldown recovery to bring down the cooldown to below 2.5 seconds. This makes the skill much more viable as the main skill, and Room Draft of Time also helps with this quite a bit, as we can sometimes overlap the hammers if the cooldown is not consumed. And yes, they do stack. Now, I'm stuck using Inquisitor for this build, as that's what you guys wanted. But I think other classes such as Berserker, Slayer, and even Champion have much more potential to scale this skill, as they have a lot more sources of attack damage and attack speed. So in future, I will definitely come back to this skill. As for Inquisitor, he has his own strengths. Like Sanctuary provides a lot of regeneration through consecrated ground and even increase the damage that enemies take. Meanwhile, Pious Path makes sure that this consecrated ground is almost permanent and even allows its effect to apply to Energy Shield. And because of that, this was my first time ever dabbling with a Energy Shield based build. On top of this, Righteous Providence makes it much easier to cap our crit chance. Meanwhile, Inevitable Judgment straight up ignores enemies' elemental resistance when we crit, completely removing the need to apply any exposure or curses. Usually, when I make builds like this, I have versions available that can even be played in SSF. But for this build, this was simply not possible. I tried making a cheaper version, but honestly, it felt absolutely garbage to play. So I would not recommend this build as a League starter to anyone, as it requires quite a bit of investment. Although I still have a Mobilityx guide to help you throughout the campaign, but after that, it straight up jumps to this version of the build. Now, most of you would just probably stop here, as this is a pretty memey build and also a somewhat clunky playstyle. But I have no plans of stopping. I'm going to push this build to its absolute limits. I'm taking it all the way to the top until I find out where those damned hammers are falling from. So before we wrap up, let's talk about my plans for the next and final update. First of all, I'm going to replace the Staff of Kulamak with a Eventuality Rod. I'm also planning to turn this build into a charge stacker. So I'm going to replace the amulet with Badge of the Brotherhood while adding Ralish Impatience to the build for permanent friendly charges. I will also add another similar large cluster jewel to the build to squeeze even more damage and attack speed. And above all, I'm probably going to replace the rare belt with a Mage Blood, as it will help me cap our crit chance much more easily I also plan to maximize our elemental resistance with melting of the flesh and synaptic rings. And of course, I will be upgrading rest of the gear as well. So there is a lot of work to be done before we can truly unleash the full potential of these damned hammers. Doing all of this can take me around 3 to 4 days. So until then, if you want to see the progress of the build, come witness it live on Twitch. If you like these type of off-meta trash builds, make sure to complete all the formalities by liking, subscribing, and even pressing that notification bell. As always, thanks for watching Exile.